Water is a natural resource. That means it is found in nature and can be used by people. People need natural resources to stay alive, such as light and air, plants, soil, stone, minerals, fossil fuels, and water. Today we are going to focus on the natural resource of water. Where does water come from? How is water used? Why do things sink or float? And how can we protect this natural resource? How would you describe water? Wet, cool, refreshing, clean, clear, liquid? Water comes in three forms: a solid, a liquid, and a gas. Water is always changing, and this is what causes the water cycle. Water is heated by the sun. The water evaporates into a gas, condenses in the sky to form clouds. Water or ice droplets are formed and fall back to the earth, forming puddles, streams, and rivers that flows back into the salty ocean to start the cycle all over again. How is water used? Why is it important? 71% of the Earth's surface is covered in water. That's a good thing because we need a lot of it, but most of this water is salt water in the oceans. Fresh water makes up a very small fraction of all the water on the planet. Only 2.5% of it is fresh. Fresh water is what we use for drinking water. We also use fresh water to water plants, water the animals, wash our dishes, or to take a bath. Water is also important in the use of fire extinction and power generation. Swimming, water skiing, boating, and diving are recreational uses of water. All living organisms need water to grow, or they will not survive. In the desert, where it doesn't rain a lot, some plants can store their own water until it rains again. But all living things need a water source. Let's do a sink or float activity. I have here a container of water and 8 objects. The objects are a tomato, a silver spoon, a plastic spoon, a marker, a rock, a cat toy, a rubber band, and a plastic ring. Out of these objects, which objects do you think will float? Let's try each object. Let's start with the tomato. Will it sink or float? It floats. Let's try the silver spoon. Will it sink or float? It sinks. Let's try the plastic spoon. Will it sink or float? It floats. Let's try the rock. Will it sink or float? It sinks. Let's try the cat toy that has holes in it. Will it sink or float? It sinks. What about the marker? Will it sink or float? It floats. This plastic ring, will it sink or float? It sinks. And the last one, this rubber band, will it sink or float? It sinks. Which one of these objects were you surprised at? Why do things sink or float in water? Well, objects with tightly packed molecules are denser and sink. Objects with more loosely packed molecules are less dense and float. In other words, a rock is dense, so it will sink to the bottom, but a tomato is less dense, so it will float at the top. The shape of an object makes a difference as well. This is why a heavy ship can float on the surface of the water. Its shape creates buoyancy that pushes up from the bottom and keeps it afloat. But if water gets in the boat will sink. If air is trapped in an object, it will float, like a balloon. But this object had holes in it, so water filled up the holes and made it sink. We've learned a lot about water. Let's talk about ways to protect our natural resource. Here are some things you can do. Don't waste water. Don't leave the faucet running when you brush your teeth or wash your hands or fill up a container. Don't use more water than you need when taking a bath or a shower. Don't water your plants in the heat of the day, where the water just evaporates and doesn't benefit the plant. Water plants early in the morning or in the evening. Don't throw trash on the ground, where it can end up polluting land, rivers, lakes, and the ocean. Here are some activities you can do in your science journal. Draw a large raindrop and brainstorm water words like drippy, splashy, cool, or wet. Draw and label the water cycle, evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. What are some sources of water? Draw and write about lakes, streams, and oceans. We use water in different ways. Show some of the ways that you know of that we use water. Illustrate and write about ways we can conserve water and protect our natural resource. Make predictions about different objects, whether they will sink or float, and test to see if you were right. Conduct an experiment to see which items will dissolve in water and write them in your science journal. And last, draw and write about a time that you had fun in the water. Now go back and re-watch this video and count how many times I said water. Thanks for watching.